Hi, Tools Down community. My name is Brett Ryan, the CEO of Focus on the Family in Australia. And I was disappointed not to be able to share with you face to face, but I've done the next best thing of trying to do a series of videos. This is part 3 of a series of what to do when relationships don't go so well. And I've done one on restarting your marriage, another one on resetting your marriage. And today I'd like to talk to you about how do you help somebody navigate some of the complexities and the challenges that they're going to be facing and how to support them when the relationship isn't going so well. We at Focus on the Family are all about strengthening families and strengthening relationships, and we do that in a variety of ways through our radio, through our social media platforms, through our website and other resources. And if we can be of any service to you, do not hesitate to contact us, because we know during this time of the coronavirus, families are being forced together, and it can actually put a lot of strain on finances. It can put a lot of strain on not having any little bit of me time. It can put a lot of strain on the relationship that was already possibly strained, and it is only going to exacerbate. And we know that when that tension is there, it can only flare up and get worse. And we would actually encourage you, if you are going through that at the moment, take a time out, place a truce in the way that you talk to one another, the way that you communicate, the tone, the volume, and actually say, hey, this has got to stop, not only for our mental health benefits, but also for our kids. But this, what I'm going to share with you today, is going to talk about how, if you know somebody who's going through a challenging time, or when their relationship has gone a little bit sour, how you can support them. Obviously, it's very frustrating when you see a relationship going south, and when it's becoming disintegrating before your very eyes. And you can't force them to get counseling. You can't force them to get help. They have to desire it. They have to want it themselves. So you're what I would call a come alongside person, someone that can actually just encourage them, to support them, to be a listening ear, but you can't fix their problem. Unfortunately, in our day and age, this in our world today, is we can't help people unless they want to help themselves. And for those who've got a faith, this can be a very frustrating thing, because you know that with God at the center of their relationship, and I don't know if that's your journey at the moment, and I would encourage you to explore it with a friend or a pastor, to find out a little bit more about this God person, because obviously the world seems to be out of control, but God is in control. For those who have got an active faith, it doesn't mean that there aren't going to be problems. It doesn't mean that you're going to be exempt from challenges, but you've got something true and something real to hold on to. And I'm going to be sharing a couple of Bible verses as we go along that will be not only practical, but also coming from a theological point of view, especially if you're helping somebody going through a hard time. It says in Philippians, let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others. And obviously you're listening today and you may be saying, hey, I know somebody who's going through a hard time. Even just the thought that you're recognizing that you can help somebody, you're actually not looking out for your own interests, but for others. And it says in Hebrews, do not neglect to do good and to share with what you have, for such sacrifices are pleasing to God. So not only is it good service and neighborly to help somebody going through this, but God is actually saying, hey, this is good for you as well. I already mentioned that you can't force someone to get counseling, and we at Focus on the Family highly encourage people to speak to a third party, someone who is not close to you, someone who doesn't really know you, but can actually give you an outside perspective. And we at Focus highly recommend the Christian Counselors Association of Australia, and you can go to their website at ccaa.net.au, and maybe pick up a phone, or maybe even do a Skype counseling with them, just to actually address some of these issues. We would rather encourage you to be more proactive rather than reactive. Sometimes, unfortunately, people leave it too late and the horse is bolted, and it's very hard to reconcile when it's got that far. But I have actually seen the most dysfunctional relationships being restored if both parties are willing to do the hard yards and actually say, hey, what have I done to contribute to the health and well-being of this marriage, or what have I done to the detriment of this marriage, and to do everything humanly possible. And even at the end of the day, you can't guarantee the relationship be restored, but you can be the very best version of yourself, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. So when I say that you can't force someone to get counseling, you can be a listening ear, but you can't fix their problems. And you don't want to get in a situation where they confide in you and then you can use it as ammunition against the other person and come to your own conclusions, because there's always two sides of every story. And so you have to be a listening ear to both, ideally. But unfortunately, some people only tell one side of the story and then make them feel like that the other person's all at fault. But it always takes two to tango, as they say. So one of the things that I would encourage you to do, especially when relationships get quite heated, and unfortunately, I've been receiving calls from people and emails from people when it has gone really quite significantly destructive, when it gets verbally aggressive, or when it gets emotionally aggressive, or unfortunately when it gets physically aggressive. And these are from people who I happen to know, and I know both parties, and I'm thinking that is so out of character. This whole circumstances we find ourselves during this enforced isolation has placed enormous pressure financially. It places enormous pressure on people's future. It places enormous pressure on being in the confines and not being outside as much, and getting your regular exercise. The kids are there, they're doing schooling, they're doing work, you're doing work. There's a whole lot of things that are going on, and it can actually bring out the worst in people. And so recognizing that as a problem is the first part of healing. So if you do hear of someone going through, a terrible time, and they share with you that someone has either been emotionally or physically abusive, really listen to them and believe in them and validate their story or their feelings. Often I've heard from people who have shared it with either church leaders or a friend or a close family member, and people dismiss them because they know the other person. They say, that can't possibly have happened. You're exaggerating. It can't be that bad. And those people feel unheard, not validated. No one believes them, and they can just feel completely alone, and you don't want that. I know there's going to be some stories that people say they make up those stories, and that happens, unfortunately, but they are more of the minority rather than majority. And we do know that both males and females can be victims, and I've heard many men share with their stories about their journey when their wife was physically or emotionally abusive and verbally abusive, and no one believes them. And so it takes both sides to do this. Unfortunately, men are often the perpetrators and women are the victims, and that's what the data would say. But there's a lot of unreported and underreported things taking place, and so really listen and believe in that person's story. Affirm them that there is completely incorrect behavior and incorrect attitudes. No one deserves to be abused, and it is completely wrong. So affirm that they haven't done anything wrong. No one deserves it at all. Acknowledge it takes courage to admit when things aren't going so well, and that's part of the challenge, that when people are doing things in isolation, they hide things, and they feel shame and feel guilt, and they don't share things, but acknowledge their courage, that they're coming out and seeking help. Give them some options to know what to say and what to do. You can't tell them, but give them an array of options. Don't be a gossip, and if they share something with you, it doesn't mean you have to be completely confidential. There'll be some people that you need to get help, whether it's a pastoral team or whether it needs to have intervention from the police or whether it needs other professional services. You can't force somebody to go back to home. If they've taken the courage to tell you, you can't just say, you got to go back to your husband who's abusive. You got to go back to your wife that's, verbally aggressive to you. No, you can't force them, but you can encourage them to address these issues. And unfortunately, I've heard people using the Bible to, and taken out of context to affirm their beliefs. No one deserves to have this behavior. And they might say things, well, they haven't committed adultery and they haven't left you, so go back to your home. But nobody deserves to be put up with that type of behavior. But you can't also force them to leave either, because it can be a very precarious time. Be a support, encourage them, come alongside them during this time, especially if they are the victim. But on the other hand, the perpetrator, you've got to support them. It doesn't mean you condone their behavior, and especially this destructive behavior, but you aren't going to desert them. You're going to be there every step of the way to help them, and it's not an excuse for their behavior, but you're going to help them get the right help that they need. But it means that if they aren't willing to change or acknowledge their behavior, then that's when you have to actually say, well, I can't help you any further. I'm going to be here if you're willing to make the changes that are needed to restore your relationship. Or not even if to restore your relationship, sometimes it's impossible, but to become the very best version of themselves. And I would encourage you, if you are in a situation where you are being the recipient of pain or fear for yourself or your kids, to remove yourself. It doesn't mean it's the end of a relationship. It may be the catalyst that other person needs to recognize that what they're doing is wrong and they need help. So separation doesn't mean divorce. It just means this could be the aha moment that they need to get the help that they need. You can't force it. You can't speed up the process. It takes time. And often when a relationship is going south, it's taken months and years to get it where it is. So it doesn't mean it's going to be a quick fix and just say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting help now. Can I come back to the family home? No, that doesn't happen that way. It takes time. And especially if you are the victim, if your husband or wife say, oh, I'll never happen again. Can I come back now? No, you need to see significant ongoing life transforming change, that you will see it over a long period of time, not just a couple of days, but over weeks and months. And then you would consider welcoming them back into the family home. And I'd encourage you, as I said, this is not something that you can do by yourself. You need a third party. And I encourage you to think about how you could get the right help. And the Christian counselor would be one place, your pastor, or confide in a friend that you know that you can trust, that has got wisdom and insights, and maybe someone who is actually doing life well. You don't want to go to someone who's going through the similar circumstances. I mean, that can help, but you want someone who's going to give you some strategies to help navigate and to go through the tough times. When things go wrong in a relationship, there's lots of things that you can do well, and there's lots of things you can that actually can ruin the relationship even further. So if you are a person helping someone navigate this, believe in them, be there, confident, be someone that you can be there through the ups and the downs, but you're going to be there every step of the way, especially if they're doing all the right things to restore the relationship. But it doesn't mean that I can guarantee that the relationship will be restored, but what I can guarantee, you will become the very best version of yourself. And that's what you want as you're helping somebody navigate this, that you'll become the very best version of themselves. Well, I hope that's been a blessing to you, these past 3 sessions of helping somebody restart their marriage, especially when it's gone wrong, resetting your marriage, and then how to help somebody going through, be the support person or the help person as they go through a difficult time. If we at Focus on the Family can be of any service to you, don't hesitate to contact us. Our email is response@families.org.au. Our phone number is 1300 300 361, and our email address, our website is families.org.au. And Focus on the Family is a donor-supported ministry. And if we have been a blessing to you, or you have heard of how we can be a blessing to others, all of our radio content, all of our content that we're providing on our website is all provided through the generosity of people like you helping us. And if you help us, it means we can help more families. And you can make a tax-deductible donation through our website. And helping us means that we can help more Australian families thrive. God bless, and thank you so much for the Tools Down community for listening to us for the last 3 weeks. And I look forward to be able to meeting you face to face sometime in the future. God bless.